So I apologize, guys. This is my first time trying this on my own in a somewhat serious way. I do not currently have the intro video file from Joe, but I will try to track that down and maybe do some editing to try to figure that out for the next episode. Um, I also want to kind of begin by saying that this is my first time flying solo with something like this, by using something other than just my phone in order to record. So you can't see it, but I am rocking a tripod over here that's not visible to you, and also a webcam as opposed to just using my phone in order to record. I'm currently using OBS to try to record this. I've got some settings on there that I thought would work, and we'll see how it goes. In testing, it seemed to go okay, but I will try to improve upon it in future episodes. The other thing I'd like to point out is that I'm not currently projecting my voice the way that I normally would. I'm never going to bust out that corny fake YouTuber, hi, my name is blah, 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 and I love games, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not going to bust that out. I'm going to be real and authentic here with you guys. But my wife and my daughter are currently asleep, and I'm trying not to wake them up. So I promise if I'm sounding a little bit softer, I'm not trying to hit you guys up with some ASMR, although maybe in the future. So it is not a secret that you guys have not seen me or heard from me on video in quite a while. So I'm sure that, you know, just like you, COVID has been a crazy time for me and for my family. In the meantime, in the middle of all of that, we also bought a house, and we essentially had the inside torn apart and renovated. And I've been doing some work beyond that after that. So it's been a crazy time. And then just on top of that, my job has also been insane. So finding some free time has been crazy. And then beyond that, with the nature of my job, with being a teacher, with students coming back into school, and with me seeing dozens of people per day, it just didn't feel right for me to go and then potentially infect the rest of the crew, and then vice versa. Because if they were to have it, and if I were to bring it back to my students, that also doesn't feel morally right. So, without getting into the philosophy of all of this, that's basically where I've been. And as part of that, I've also kind of gone on a solo tabletop gaming odyssey. And I would like to begin by blaming this entire thing on internet personality Evangelist, because I saw him post on Twitter one day. He'd done a few different games. I think Spirit Island was one, which is on my radar. Um, but the one that really stood out to me was a game called Nemo's War. And the cool thing about that is that kind of throughout the game, it's a solo game. You're playing as Captain Nemo. There are different events that pop up. You have decisions to make along the way. It almost seemed kind of like a gamified choose your own adventure type of thing, while also being a little bit of a war game on top of that. So it seemed really intriguing to me. So I tracked that down. And then from there, kind of very quickly fell into this deep rabbit hole of solo tabletop wargaming. So not just wargaming, but tabletop gaming. And I've had an opportunity to play a couple of different games like that. Now, I am extremely lucky in that my wife is more than happy to also play different types of tabletop games. However, the way that our schedules match up, she's also in education. We're both insanely busy throughout the day. When we get home, we're still working. When we get home, on top of that, we have our daughter that we're also taking care of, and trying to spend time with her, and just things have been crazy. So usually, my wife likes to get sleep like a normal human being, whereas I do not. So during later at night is when I like to bust out the solo tabletop gaming. So in this kind of series that I'm going to start for you, not for you, but I'm doing it more for me. As you can tell, it is a little bit late at night. I'm a little bit rambly right now. I'm going to kind of just talk to you guys about some of these games that I've been playing. It is not necessarily a review. I don't know if I have enough sessions under my belt in order to give you guys a deep review. I'm also, at least in this video I'm making right now, this is not going to be a playthrough. I might do that in the future. But again, that's something where I need to just kind of figure out this whole recording thing a little bit better. So anyway, without any further ado, I want to hit you guys up with one of my favorites for right now. So Chip Theory Games, let's start over here, is a company that has been on my radar for a while. The reason why is if you're part of any kind of like board gaming community, whether it's on Facebook, you check out Board Game Geek, anywhere like that, everybody is raving about a game called Too Many Bones. And Too Many Bones is essentially like a dice building RPG. It's probably more complicated than that. I'm probably not doing a good job explaining it. But the gameplay is supposed to be amazing. Beyond that, the component quality is also supposed to be fantastic. Um, Chip Theory Games, kind of like their shtick essentially, is that they do use a lot of poker chips in their different games, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But the other thing that I'm noticing is that they produce also very high quality neoprene or kind of like mouse pad type material. Um, Sometimes it's a game mat, sometimes it's kind of like a player board that you're looking at. There's another game they make called Cloudspire where you kind of build a map out of hexes made out of neoprene. I don't think I've seen any other company aside from certain like wargaming 2D war machine type of games where they'll make terrain out of this mouse pad material because it's quick to put down and it's also not going to interfere with having to move models through. It's more competitive as opposed to more thematic or fluffy. Anyway, I'm off on a major tangent again. So Hoplomachus appealed to me for a few reasons. One of my favorite tabletop gaming genres is a not quite skirmish miniatures, because skirmish miniatures can mean a lot of different things. But I like arena skirmish miniatures games, or maybe just arena combat miniatures game, something like that. And there are a lot of them out there on the market, but almost universally, they are one-to-one. They're usually competitive. And beyond that, in order to do well with them, you usually have to be very heavily invested in them. Not necessarily with money, but maybe with money, but more in terms of like putting time into it. You need to know what your faction can do. You can need to know what other people's factions can do. I'm thinking of a game like Warhammer Underworlds. Shadespire was the first in that series. And there's a whole bunch of other ones out there. Anyway, so with Hoplomachus, it caught my eye because I don't know how well you can see it down here, but you can play the solo, you can play it cooperatively, you can also play it head-to-head competitively. Um, and that was cool. Beyond that, the idea of like a gladiator combat type of thing, also extremely interesting. There's a miniatures game, skirmish miniatures game, which means roughly, I don't know, a handful of models per side, called Arena Rex that has beautiful models. I even have an MDF like Coliseum that I like to pretend that one day I will assemble in order to use with this game, which I have a few models for in order to play, but we'll see if that ever works out. But anyway, the idea of gladiatorial combat, very cool to me. So, kind of like the conceit behind this game is that it is in Rome, and kind of like these lost cities. These how about that? Didn't do that on purpose, but these lost cities, these kind of like mythical cities, Xanadu, Atlantis, El Dorado. They make their presence known to Rome, and Rome wants to kind of like test their combat capabilities. So they invite them to send their best warriors, their best soldiers to the gladiatorial arena in order to throw down. And they kind of bill it as like, this great challenge, this great competition, when really what Rome is trying to do is kind of feel out their capabilities. So Hoplomachus has 3 different core games. They also have a number of different expansions as well. Lost Cities was the first one that they put out. The second one is called The Rise of Rome, which I also have but have not had a chance to play. The third one that they put out is called Origins, and Origins is a little bit smaller scale. And as you play each game, kind of like the ability to play it either solo or cooperatively evolves a little bit. This is at its most basic level. Rise of Rome introduces kind of like more specific scenarios for each different, I believe Titans are what they call them, that you fight, which is the AI opponent. And then Origins kind of has like a series of challenges that you play through, is how that works for the AI. And then they can also all be played either cooperatively or they can be played head to head as well. And for the most part, you can also mix and match them and play like there's different cities you get in Rise of Rome. You can play them head to head. There's also different expansions as well. Some of them I do have in here. Some of them are smaller scale. One of them was basically designed to make this from the way that this plays is that when you choose your faction, you essentially kind of put your different units into this bag that you then pull them out, and like you kind of have to play with what you've randomly kind of picked out, which adds an element of randomness. One of the expansions was meant to kind of make it so you could play in a more constructed type of way. So you kind of build your force is the idea. And then another one introduced like beasts and kind of their handlers for your faction. There's also, there's other ones too. Like there's a whole two other brand new factions you can play as. One of which I believe is Machu Picchu, and Carthage is the other one. So you kind of bring in these other civilizations to play as, and it's pretty cool. So anyway, I'm kind of again off on a bunch of tangents here. So I'm going to begin by opening this bad boy up. However, it should be noted that this is a very large box. In fact, it is maybe annoyingly large in some ways in that there's no real convenient shelving to store this on. But the neat thing is that chip theory games in general, they're good about when they kind of create their core game box is that they give you storage for future expansions. If I really wanted to, I could combine almost, well, not almost, I could combine the other major big box expansion, Rise of Rome, in with this one as well, and then keep Origins as its own little one. So, size comparison. That is a coaster. This is a typical 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and then this is a can of Diet Coke, which is going to roll off the box. So let me get that out of the way. So long story short, it is a big box. Let me open this up. I will probably knock into the camera because I'm not used to doing this. Okay, so box is open, and here's what you have inside. Camera is struggling a little bit to focus, but I'll play with that later. So as I've kind of touched upon already, the component quality of this game is fantastic. So all these are right here are, this gives you some fluff about the arena that you're fighting in. And then on the back, it kind of gives you like a little rundown on some of the AI units. And then it kind of gives little primers on the 3 different cities you can play as: El Dorado, Atlantis, and Xanadu. So they give you some fluff on one side. And then the neat thing you can see this year is that the art from the game is all art that's in the public domain. So like these are all old paintings and things like that that they end up using for the art on the units and all that type of stuff. I'll show you the chips in just a little bit. And then each one also kind of has a little bit of a quick little rundown on the play style and the special abilities of the 3 different factions. Okay, so one thing to note is that the quality on this is fantastic. This game doesn't use cards like typical like poker-sized cards or magic-sized cards like some of their other games do. But I've heard people say that you don't even need to sleeve them. That's how like good the quality is on those cards, and that you can basically get them wet, that they're basically waterproof. Now, I'm not going to test that, and I will probably end up sleeving them anyway, but that is what people say. And then even people who are skeptical about that at first have said that it's good stuff. So you also have a rulebook, and the rulebook does a pretty good job of explaining how to play. I did, after I played my first session or two, have to look up a couple of things, but they also have a pretty good FAQ on their website. And in fact, they even have some very specific questions for different products. You click on the product, you can see any FAQs that are related to it there. So the other thing is in here. It is important to note that this cardboard tube and this cardboard tube are empty. There's nothing in them, but the idea is that you can store other. This is the arena mat you play on. I'll kind of do a little cut in a little bit, show you what a game might look like. So you can fit more than one in here. And as far as I know, there are 3 different playmats of the size you can play on. One comes in Rise of Rome. The other one was a separate buy, and it's extremely hard to track down, so I do not have it yet. Another thing that I probably should have mentioned earlier is the fact that This game is essentially complete between the three major boxes and then also the expansions out there. It's basically complete, but they are going to do a Kickstarter. I want to say it's going to be around April-ish, but don't quote me, where they kind of like reset the game. And I think they're going to have a little bit heavier focus on solo play as part of that. And I think they're going to maybe streamline things a little bit as well. I do not know if the stuff that is here is going to be compatible with that. I want to say no, but I still think that this is very worth getting into. And I would also say, if you can, try to find someone who is selling their collection because you can get everything in one shot. And that was a little bit of a mistake I made where after I got into this, then I started kind of like looking on the different, buy, sell, trade Facebook groups for board games, and people were selling their entire collection, including like some of the smaller expansions. You can see some random chips over here that I've not yet put with the other chips over here. They can be very hard to find right now. But if you just buy someone's collection, they usually have it all together in one shot. So that would be my recommended way that I have for you of getting into this. If not, their webpage, Chip Theory Games, you can order most of the products there. If not, there's other just random gaming stores that at least have the big boxes there. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. So some other stuff that you get in here. There are, oh, sorry, it's stuck in here. You have, there's a third one down here. So I'm just going to tuck two of these away. You get three, these are basically dice bags, right? And what these do, as I kind of mentioned before, when you are playing, these are your gladiators, these are your tactics, and here you put them in the bag and you kind of random draw them out, and that's what these are for. These are the dice. So there's like just two plain six-sided dice. They control a couple of things like movement. There's randomized movement for animals and stuff like that. The different color dice have different effectiveness. I want to say that the black has the most hits, which are the H here, or success symbols there. I think yellow is the middle, and I think, sorry, yellow is the worst, and then blue I think is like that mid step. Yeah, so dice are there. They're pretty good. They're D6s, nothing too crazy to write home about. Let me talk about these. So these right here are the health chips. So the health chips, it's just a chip. There's nothing crazy about it. It's got their company logo there. And these are like a plastic poker chip. So these are a little bit lighter. They don't quite feel as good. However, Chip Theory Games is really, really good about offering ways to upgrade the game. So for most of their games that, thinking Cloudspire and also Too Many Bones, they offer an upgrade pack where the health chips are the same type of poker chips, which I wouldn't say are made out of clay, but don't quote me on that. The clay poker chips have that kind of heavier weight to it, but these are still pretty good. And the neat thing is that they're used to show health, so you've got your big bad boss out there stacked up on top of 11 of those chips to show that he has a lot of health left, and that's pretty neat. Let me show you guys here. Just choose a random one. So this is, and let me see if I can do the trick to make it focus. And you guys know I'm not good at centering things. So this is what a unit looks like, right? So you've got the name right here, different attacks or abilities over here, their stats over here. And like these have a good weight to them. And they also like the quality of these feels good. The sticker doesn't feel like it's going to peel off. It's satisfying to hold, and it's also satisfying as you play to like move it across the table too. We'll put that there for now. And I think this is all I'm going to show you for the unboxing part, but I'm going to cut here, and if this works well, then I'm going to show you kind of what a game looks like in the middle of a game. So here we go. All right, and we are back. So this here is a solo game kind of at the beginning or almost in session here. So a couple of things I want to kind of draw your attention to. The very first thing is that you guys can see here, this is my champion. My champion begins on the board, and also technically he should begin inactive. And I guess Now is a good time to show you what the units look like. And let's see. Seems like we're auto-focusing here. So a couple random things. It gives you the name of the unit. The C means it is your champion. And in co-op, you need your champion to survive, is the idea. This is their basic attack and what dice they roll when they do that. This is their starting health. And you can see on the board there, you put the health beneath the unit to show how much health they have left. The one next to the swords in orange right here shows you their attack range. So in this case, the target needs to be directly adjacent to you. This green kind of sandal right here is your movement. So when you move, this guy can move one. This here shows you the range that you could play tactics with. Tactics are another type of chip which have a either a kind of temporary effect or a permanent effect. So in this case, you can basically make it so that another unit is able to no longer use their basic attack, and that's the only way that kind of like the minions for the enemies are able to do that. So you eliminate a threat, and it doesn't let you play that on enemy bosses. I want to say that this is from an expansion because it mentions Titans, which is a thing that only pops up in Rise of Rome. But anyway, I'll put that back. And then you can also see, come on, the ability here, Extreme Pull. And there's a little kind of cheat sheet on the back of the manual that lists all the different abilities and what they do. But essentially, Atlantis' thing is that they can manipulate the positioning of the enemy is one of the things that they can do. And some of their other units can kind of help you with that. There are other ones, for example, let's see. So like the Archer, they're special. Let's do the trick I see everybody do, and it doesn't want to do what I want it to do. There we go. Okay. So here, the ability here, First Strike means that when this guy is deployed, he can attack right away. Most units can't when they're first deployed. But long shot, so as an alt attack rather than the normal attack, which is a black and a yellow, and this guy can normally hit from 2 spaces away. I could choose, rather than do the basic attack, to do the alt attack, which is only 1 yellow. But as I double check this very quickly, for this one here, long shot, means I can hit up to 4 away, or at least try to attack somebody 4 spaces away. So everybody has their own kind of like unique ability, which is pretty cool. So I'll put him back. And you can see here all of my different starting units have their health beneath them. The way that you begin play is you begin with your champion on the board, and they begin inactive. There are certain conditions that make them active, one of which is taking damage. And for solo play, that's simplified. For head-to-head, it's different, but I've not played a head-to-head, so I can't tell you about that. You begin with 6 different random gladiators that are kind of like in the wings, ready to go. And then you also begin with 1 tactic in a similar type of way. The way that solo play works is that you have to get through 3 enemy bosses, and the game kind of sort of resets in between, except for the health of your champion does not reset. So whatever damage you take on him, that damage sticks around. So in order to win, you need to take out the enemy boss, is the idea. And enemies, let me start with this one here because it's relatively simple. So this here is an arena criminal. The minions are either criminals or beast, and they're kind of generic. And the idea is that if it's a criminal, they're champion bound, so they're always, when they move, going to want to move in as straight of a line as they can towards your champion. And they've got the same type of stats as the units that you can field. And these guys roll a die. On certain results, they either don't move. On certain results, they only move 1 space. Or on like a 6, they move 2 spaces, for example. And that's a criminal. And then the other type of kind of minion, essentially, is an arena beast. And so combat lock, what that means is that if it engages one of your units, that neither this guy or your unit are going to disengage from that fight. They're going to fight to the death. basically. And there are some kind of exceptions to that, but that is the basic way it goes. So when these guys move, it is kind of interesting that there's actually, probably hard for you to see, but there's a little guide here and also a little guide here. And the idea is that you end up rolling 2d6s, pop, and then essentially here, actually, my bad. So the white one tells you, I think, how many spaces you move. Sorry, it's been a second or two since I've done this. I know this is riveting video for you guys here. Okay, so the idea is it's going to move according to the white first and then according to the red. So here, a 1 means that it's going to go to that space right there. And then here, a 3 means it's going to go to that space there. So the beasts are a little bit kind of erratic in how they move. You can't control how they're going to go, which can be good or bad. So right now it's kind of wandering off in the opposite direction of where my guys are, but it can also wander off in the direction of your own guys and kind of mess things up. So, I'm sorry, and whoops. Because he has 2 movement, he would actually go 1, 2, and then a 3, you go 1, 2. So like they move randomly, and they also go a little bit further when they move. And again, if they kind of like get within a space of somebody at that point, like this guy's locked, he can't move away from him. They kind of have to fight until one or both of them are dead. Let me move this guy back to here. The other thing to point out too is the boss. So the boss basically works the same way. The only thing to note is that you always roll an attack with these guys, um, even if there's not an enemy that is a valid target, because there's also like a certain ability here. So for Scared Stiff, for example, if he ends up rolling a 6 for this attack, that means that any opposing units within 3 hexes are stunned for a turn. And stun means that essentially they lose their stats and skills. So they're kind of like, they're basically kind of dead in the water, is more or less how that goes. Anyway, and then so here the bosses also, they are champion bound as well. So they're going to kind of make a beeline straight for your champion. There are also beast champions. Let me find one very quickly. I just saw one before as I was getting this ready. Here we go. So here, this snake guy, right? So the snake is going to end up moving in the same type of way as other beasts do. So they're kind of like a little bit harder to control, which is neat. Anyway, the difficulty does also escalate. So in your first round, you begin with 2 spaces with enemies already on them and ready to go. And then in round 2, you start with 3 enemies out there, and then round 3, you start with 4. And you end up fighting a different boss each round as well. You have to defeat all 3 in order to win. The other thing to point out is that you have this little track down here, and this is the crowd favorite track. So as you do certain things, for example, as you kill enemy units, you gain favor with the crowd, and then there's a little kind of counter that moves up. And then once you get to here, you kind of get this and you're able to use this. So in this case, it's a tactic. And then once you get all the way to the end, you kind of get an additional gladiator that pops out that you can then use to help you out. So I guess like I said, I'm not going to do a playthrough right now with you guys, but I do want to kind of just show you at a basic level how the game goes. And I'll try to do that as quickly as I can because this is already probably going longer than I intended it to. So the first thing you end up doing is you change the crowd tally if need be. There are certain hexes, this one and this one, for example, that if you occupy, it gains you favor with the crowd. The second thing you can do is that you can deploy chips. Now, if you are playing solo, then you're able to deploy one unit and you can use one tactic if you would like to. And when you spawn units in, you can spawn them on the blood spattered spaces that are on your side of the board. If it was a head-to-head game, then obviously these are the other player spaces that they can spawn people in on. These trapdoors here are for enemy spawns. They kind of spawn in randomly. You can see also it goes up to 6, so you end up using the d6s to determine where they come in. And when a unit spawns in, they can't move, they can't attack. It just kind of puts them onto the board is the idea. And then you can use them in the following rounds. So after you have deployed, then you can move. If we pretend that this guy had already been out there, he can move. This guy's going to move enough 1, so he moves there. After you move all of your guys, then you attack with any of your figures that are capable of attacking. And again, when you attack, the different chips tell you what dice to roll. We'll do this guy here because he gets to roll 3 dice. So we have 2 black and a yellow. So the black are the strongest, blue is mid-tier, yellow have the worst. So in this case, I'd have 2 successes is what I would have. So let me put him back. And then at that point, your turn is over. So from there, then it goes to the enemy, the AI. So like I said before, the criminals are going to want to go straight towards your champion as quickly as they can. So for the criminals, when they move, you roll a d6. And if you roll a 1, they don't move. If you roll a 2, 3, 4, or 5, they move 1 space. If they roll a 6, they move 2. So I roll. Okay, that's great off the bat. So bop, bop, he would go there. And then the arena beast. So we end up rolling. I'll have the white be that side. I'll have the red be that side. So so again, his movement is 2. So a 5 is going to take him sideways 2. 1, 2. It's not really especially great. And then we check over here. The 1 is going to take him this way. So 1, 2. So the beasts kind of go off and they kind of do their own thing, and they're randomly dangerous. And then from here, the boss, you do the same thing. So taking a look here, he's got a movement of, come on, focus. Focus. Again, bear with me. I will get better at this. So, so 0 to 2, he's going to work the same way movement-wise as a criminal. So, whoops. So he's also kind of making a beeline straight for that champion, who again is this guy here. Also, he's currently inactive, so there are certain things that trigger him becoming active. The main one for solo that's going to kind of come into play is taking damage. So like you can see, he's going to make his way there. And then from there, he also ends up, you would also then roll to see, is he going to activate his ability? So in this case, no, it's only on a 6. And then from there, it kind of continues forward. So in the next round, it's going to work in a similar way. I check the favor. I can spawn in a unit. If I wanted to play a tactic, I could play a tactic. If you end up playing cooperatively, it kind of limits you a little bit in that, first of all, you end up facing 2 bosses. And then the other thing, too, is since you're kind of playing 2 factions at that point, each player can only play, I believe, 1 chip is how it works out. So you can either spawn a unit or you can play a tactic out there. You can even go 3, in which case I believe that you are facing 3 different bosses at the same time. Don't quote me. And then same thing, like you're limited, you only get to play 1 chip per player. So we've spawned people in, then we can move. Sorry, that was random loud noise here. You can move from there your people. This guy had already been out there, so I can move him there. This guy just spawned in, so again, you can't move on the first turn you spawn. This guy is inactive currently, so he can't do anything. And then from here, I would do my attacks. So this guy here is able to attack from a range of 2, and he's going to roll the black die. So I roll that black die, boom, I get a hit, so he loses a health. And then the archer has an ability called First Strike, which means that they are able to attack on that first turn that they come in. So also a range of 2, so I get to roll my black and my yellow. So that was out there. So I get 1 more hit. All right, so he's taking some damage, but he's still kicking. And then all of my units that can attack have attacked. The next thing I do is I spawn an enemy unit in there. So I roll a die. So 6, it's going to go here. So you randomly choose a minion to pop out there. Another arena beast is there. And of course you would give him his health when he's there. Boom, good to go. And then I believe that they don't move the first turn they pop out, but don't quote me. I have to kind of double check that really quickly, which I'm currently doing. Again, I know riveting, right? I'm not immediately seeing that, so I'm not gonna focus too badly on that right now. But then from there, like the enemies do their movement. So here, you can choose the order that you activate the enemies in, which can be helpful. Like you can sometimes make it so that they're not able to get to certain characters. So we'll go him first. We roll to see how far he moves. So on a 2, 3, 4, or 5, he moves 1 space. So he is now going to be able to attack our champion. We will do this beast here. So 6 is going to take him as far as he can go, which is there. He can't move that second space because it's the edge of the board. And then a 3 is going to bring him this way. 1, 2. We'll go this guy here. Same thing. So it's going to be a 1 first. So 1 is going to take him 1, 2. And then a 2 is going to take him sideways 1, 2. So again, like the beasts kind of do their own thing out there. And then we also do this guy here for movement. So we roll 5. He's going to move 1 space forward there. And then from there, the enemies attack. So the criminal is going to roll a black, blue, and yellow against my champion. He's going to score a hit. And at that point, my champion is going to become active. So I'm going to be able to start to use him next round. All right. And then the play basically kind of continues from here. And then your goal is that you need to kill the boss. And when you kill the boss, the game does reset. However, your champion remains at the health that he had. So like the health does not reset there. Although I want to say that it does maybe get like a little boost each round, but I could be confusing that. Again, it's a little bit late, and I apologize for not having that exact rolling down. So what I like about this game quite a bit is it gives you kind of that, it gives you the feel of playing that arena miniatures game. Now, obviously, an AI-controlled opponent is not going to be making intelligent moves the way that like a human opponent is going to. However, I find that this is still pretty fun, and it's really fun to look at what you have available. You have some of your gladiators that act as a guard. Basically, they try to soak up the attack, or they try to taunt the enemy away. You've got other gladiators that can kind of like buff up the attacks of the your allies nearby. Um, the archers can hit from long distance, but they don't do a ton of damage, and they're very fragile if they do get caught up there. Like I've had arena beasts just completely just murderize an archer when I thought it wasn't going to, right? Because they can move very quickly and very far when you don't expect them to. And then the bosses are also extremely powerful. So when they come in, like once they're over here, um, you want to try to have a good setup to where like you're buffing each other up, where you can manipulate where the boss is going and all kinds of stuff in order to keep your champion protected. Because again, you need to survive 3 rounds of this against 3 different opponents. And the boss is randomly chosen. And like I said before, this game began with 2 enemies on the field. The next round begins with 3. The round after that begins with 4. So I like this quite a bit. And then on top of that, like this is very functional. There are kind of like different little player aids on the side. I know you can't read it because it's sideways. It comes together and it forms a very nice package essentially. Rise of Rome kind of takes things to a little bit more complexity. And in that one, you face Titans, and each Titan is basically a little bit of a different scenario, is how it plays out. This is more like you're just playing against different units with different abilities, but the Titans do different things, is how they kind of play out. And then Origins is smaller. It's not kind of like this big giant map. They're more squared off and they're smaller. And for that one, it's more like you're completing a number of different challenges if you play solo. Um, and that one has a little bit more of like a drafting mechanic if you play head to head. I haven't played those yet. I am looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to continue with this, and I'm looking forward also to kickstarting the kind of the revamped version that they're going to do in a couple of months. So this right here was my first episode. I know that that went a lot longer than I intended it to. Um, and I know there were a couple of dead spots. So just kind of bear with me, my first one. It will get better. And I will tell you about another game next time. Until then, stay safe, stay sane. And in all honesty, like, those of you who maybe, if you can't get to your gaming group, if you're just not feeling the whole online thing, which, I'm not. When I get done for the day, I've been on a webcam all day, I've been on a computer all day. I don't want to go home and do more of that to get my gaming fix in. But yeah, I like this a lot. I highly, highly recommend it. This is Brian signing off.